Okay.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the newest episode of the SPS DAOn Hall, where Dave is currently looking for me. I am Claiborne, and as you heard, we've got Dave here. Today, we're going to just be talking about basically like we got an upcoming proposal that's kind of like a different take on something we've kind of been doing for like the last couple of years already. So, without further ado, just, welcome everyone. Look forward to chatting with everyone and kind of answering questions. How you doing today, Dave?
I'm great. I'm great. Looking forward to this. This is fun stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny because like I would say like, I think I'm more of like in general, kind of like a bit of an introverted person, but like I do enjoy engaging with our community a lot. And, it's probably why I spend way too much time in Discord, but it is what it is. Uh, so yeah, just like welcome guys. I know a lot of you are gonna have like questions. You can drop them in chat. We had some people drop some questions already, like the people that aren't gonna be able to make it. And I know I've been answering questions like on the post where I kind of discuss the idea of the upcoming proposal. So I guess like let's kind of like just do like a high level overview of what we're kind of discussing and really like I think like what's changing, right? I would say like if you look back since Rebellion, we've been doing these deals with the company where it's like, here's some money, go make a set, we'll do a revenue split. And every time the DAO is coming out like way ahead, right? Uh, but like it's more than that is it's kind of like we've been in this pattern of like company needs money, like let's stretch it out, we gotta hurry up, prepare, buy you guys some time to build another set, and then we have to get the money for the set. And it just seems like to me at least that there could be like a healthier approach to this, which is just one like assuring that the company doesn't have to keep like this cycle of like pushing forward just to get like another set out and another set out, but beyond that, to kind of like provide that stability while also still protecting the DAO's interest, to where we still have that upside potential like we've been doing with these previous sets. I mean, do you think that's a fair way to sum it up, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, in the past, the Dow has hired the team. The arrangement was a split. Um, the split was great for the Dow. It was, deck. It deck negative, meaning that more deck was retired. As a result of it, or not retired, but taken out of the system. Um, But it wasn't great for the team. The team, gave away a lot of revenues, and honestly, we're in a position where we don't really have revenues to give away. We cut our expenses roughly 40% over the year. Um, we're down to, lean and mean as far as, keeping everybody on board, but cutting, things from salaries to expenses, things like that. So now we're in a position where, like, looking forward, we got a whole set coming up. Like, what are we going to do? Um, I, as the CEO, have a decision to make. Do we keep what we got going forward? Um, and then the answer would be, well, if that's the case, then the Dell's going to need to bear the risk. Um, Otherwise, my first priority is to make sure the project, keeps the lights on and keeps going and, lasts, we've lasted 8 years. I wanna last 80 more, right? I won't be around for all of the next 80, but I certainly want the project to outlive myself. So we're in that point where, if the DAO wants to, hire the team, to put out the product at the rate we're doing now, great. If not, then I have to manage in this turbulent, environment, and, I will do so. So, um Clay and I have talked about what the next proposal would look like, and it's a perfect time to decide, how we're going to do it because, doing the one step at a time, herky jerky, get an advance payment, do one set, then do another advance payment, then do another thing. I mean, really our business focuses around a set cycle. A set cycle is a main set, mini set, and a reward set. I mean, those are the three primary things that we output, and that's a vast majority of our sales. So it's better just to wrap it all up into one cohesive plan than it is to try to piecemeal it.
Dave, to address one of those things you just said, have you seen Lord Arianthus? Like, I mean, I feel like we have the technology that we can keep you around for another 80 years. Are you opposed to having your head floating in a vat?
But, sure,
Okay,
I
okay,
I don't have any problem.
okay.
You can
Uh,
if you
like, I mean, on a serious note, kind of like, I think that addresses like one of the main concerns that like people have been messaging me about with like what you just said there, right? Like I think a lot of people see this as like oh no, like the company's in trouble, like they're it's like you gotta like now the DAO has to like pay money or whatever. Um, one like I don't think it's quite that, and like I'll tell you why. Well, one like I don't know how much you want to get into like finances and runway, but like I would say that like what you're seeing here is Dave is much more proactive um, compared to like just like previous management. I would say, and like Dave looks forward further, and I would say it's like less reactionary, right? So that's kind of like my assessment of the situation is like we have Dave basically like looking forward and saying it's potentially going to be like X amount of time before we do another core set, like this is the runway we have. Do I want to be safe and stretch it as far as possible, or do we want to continue at the same pace of development with like as many people on board and still like? I mean, I think you guys can see like we're doing so many developments lately that like I'm personally having trouble keeping up. It's just like it's crazy the amount of output that we're seeing from the team lately. And, honestly, like, it's pretty cool to me, right? It's one of the things, like, we look across the Web3 space and there's, like, so many projects just dying and shutting down, or, like, we're going to abandon Web3 and we're going back to Web2, right? And, one of the things that, like, I'm very grateful for personally is that, like, we now have, like some forward planning going on to where I feel like regardless of how this whole thing turns out, the game's still here, the company's still here, and it's not like we're looking at like some kind of like shutdown or anything like that, right? It's just basically, you know, I'm looking at this as like, do you want to keep going at the rate that we're going, which is like pretty aggressive. And honestly, I think it's for the best. Like, I think that like looking at how much stuff, the team managed to put out over the last year, knowing some of the big projects that we want to see delivered over this coming year, yeah, I mean, to me, it's it's almost like a no-brainer, right? And I don't really like saying it like that because I feel like that means that like I don't think that there are risks because I mean I do think that there are risks, right? And I think that that's important to also be willing to like look at and accept, right? Like so right now, like if we look at previous sets, right? Like what was our risk? We would say, look at Conclave Arcana for example, right? Like we give the team 1.2 billion deck. Then we look at, well, okay, well, what did we get back for that 1.2 billion deck? And this is one of the things that I spent quite a bit of time, researching and looking into before even making this proposal. So with Conclave Arcana, we put out. Oh, actually, sorry, Conclave Arcana was the 600 million deck. Escalation was 1.2 billion. But like so with Conclave Arcana, we put out 600 million deck, and we brought roughly $2 million like USD dollars back to the DAO, and collectively between the whole sale was around like $3 million, and there's still starter packs going on. I look back at Rebellion, which was like one of the crazier ones, right? Like we paid $250,000 in stables, and in return, the DAO got like $3 million. So it's like looking back at it and kind of like annualizing the sales for the last several years. I would say like over like the last 3 to 4 years, you guys are averaging roughly like right around $2 million a year, and that's just on pack sales, right? Like I don't have the insight into how much money is the company making from, like ongoing market fees? How much is the company making from seasonal events, like when you do Winterfest? To me, it's not hard at all to imagine that it's like covering that. Like right now, like my number is just looking at, like Rebellion, Hall of Legends, Conclave Arcana, Escalation. We're a little under 8 million. Like it's more like 7.4 with that right now. But I'm also like looking at Escalation still has a lot of packs left. So I think like around 8 million just for those four events. So to me, it's not that hard to imagine we're gonna, you know, most likely, I would say if things remain consistent, I think the Dow has a good chance of coming out ahead, right? Now, that said, of course, there's a risk. There's always a risk, and I think that that's important to assess. So, what is that risk, right? Like, what does that risk look like, Dave? And to me, I would say that risk is that, one, like things slow down and sales slow down so that, like, maybe we're not, I would say like that's our biggest risk right there is maybe you guys aren't capable of making 2.2 million a year in sales to basically offset the 4.8 million kind of like projected return. So that's a real risk, right? There's also the risk of we do all this and there's not meaningful change, right? Like there's the risk that we, continue to do rapid development, and at the end of the day, we just maintain, we stay the same. I mean, like all of these are risks that I think we face either way. So it's more just like, does the DAO want to be a part of that risk, and do we want to kind of like share the potential upside? What do you think, Dave?
You covered a lot of points there.
Yeah,
Number one,
sorry, I'm yapping a little
that's
bit.
right. Uh, yeah, obviously, this is a crypto game. Like crypto itself has risk. The game has risk. New York Stock Exchange firms that have been around for many years have less risk, but still risk. So, there's always risk. Um, we're in a situation where the industry is brutal. Um, Look, it's not hard to look around and find, major projects going down. You can look at our token versus other tokens, and I know there's a segment out there that say, "Well, don't tell me that you're better than the other guys," right? Like down 40%. Hey, we're down only 40%. These guys are down 75%. Like, yeah, I mean, I would rather be down 40% than 75%, for instance. So I'm happy about that. I'm not bragging about it though. Like they try to in their mind think that like that's bragging, and no, that's not bragging. It's just a fact. I mean, we're down. Everybody's down. It's a tough market. It doesn't mean it's going to come back. I mean, it's possible that the whole space dies and goes away, and and people have to deal with it. As far as the things that we can't control that, right? What we can control is our business, right? Like, uh, are we going to make a product that people want? Are we going to make a product that people want to spend money on? Are we going to manage the fun factor, the economics, the collectibles? All the different aspects of our game. Are we going to do all that? People can see. I mean, I've been here a little over a year. Last month was my year anniversary of being here. So, I mean, I think people can see, what we put out, and if they like what we put out, that costs 2 million bucks a year, right? So that's just the way it is, right? Like I axe expenses down. Like I said, the run rate is now 40% lower than it was when I started. Um, I kept everybody on the team that we needed, right? Like some people were let go on purpose. But the people that did the day-to-day work are here, still producing. And we didn't suffer any degradation, even though we did suffer, individually. Employees, took pretty good sized pay cuts. Our vendors definitely took some cuts. So we're at a point where, we're about as low as we can go on an operating basis, and we have a $2 million expense base. So it costs us 2 million to put out what we put out. So the question comes down to, is that the right number, right? Like, should we only be spending 200,000 instead of 2 million, or 500,000 instead of 2 million? I mean, that's a legitimate question. I have to ask myself that question all the time, right? Like, what is the right amount? So I cut it down to as far as we can go without really losing anybody we want to lose. And now we're at that point where I realize anything further that we do is going to create a situation where we're going to have less that we can do, right? Like, if you just have less employees, you have less people to do stuff. So that's okay. That's not the end of the world. It's how businesses operate. It's called downsizing. It happens all the time in the real world. So I say to myself, all right, I kind of like, as a player, as a community member, I kind of like the pace at which we're putting out stuff. So I'm excited about that. But on the other hand, I'm trying to run a business as the CEO, right, of the business, and I owe it to the employees, I owe it to the community, I owe it to the project and the investors in the project to do my best, right? Again, no guarantees, but to do my best to make sure, like I said, that that we outlast my life, right? Like, we do whatever's necessary to make sure, Splinterlands is here for the 10-year anniversary and the 15th anniversary, and and all that stuff. So looking at the environment that we're in now, what our expense base is, what our amount of funds are, which are roughly 1 million. It changes every day because roughly half of our tokens are in SPS and DAC. So on the days where they're down, it trends down. Plus we spend, that $5,500 a day. So every day that goes by, we spend money. So it was roughly a million. Last month, last month when we did the numbers, I haven't got the numbers yet for this month, but, it'll be just shy of 1 million. So I certainly can stay in business with $1 million. Like, we don't need, the Dow funding to stay in business, in the sense that, you like, we would, in other words, we'll cut our expenses to what we need to cut them to make sure we stay in business. So, then it comes down to, what do we want to do, right? You know, eh, as far as I'm concerned, we want to stay in business. So, I think the project is important, that the project stay in business. I think that everybody involved, from people on the Splinterland side, people in the community, people in the DAO, the investors, the players, all those people want to see Splinterland survive. We got a lot of, cool things happening. So in the position I'm at, I have to say, well, does the DAO want to fund us or not? Right. And if the DAO wants to fund us, what would be a reasonable deal? Well, if the DAO wants to fund us, what are we asking for? Are we asking for, like, big fat money that we can all, go out and hang out on the beach together? Or are we asking for what we need, to pay our bills? And that's basically the question. And the answer is, we're asking for what we spend, which is $2 million a year. So, I would like it to be, during the whole set cycle. So my thought is, like, I manage based on the set cycle, which again is a main set, a mini set, reward set, right? And there's a cycle time. It has been 18 months. Clay wanted to move it to 24 months through consultation with other guys. That's fine with me either way. And so the point is, like, I right now have to say, well, do I shoulder the risk, of getting those sales? Like Clay said, the last two set sales have been more than that $2 million a year, right? They were in it, they exceeded it. But now looking forward, I have to say to myself, you know, what happens if the economy gets worse? What happens if we lose some big players? What happens if we do something wrong and upset people? Like, there's all kinds of things that could go wrong. So I got to manage the business, right? So if I have to take the risk, as a company, and my answer's got to be to be more defensive. If the Dow wants us to keep what we're doing at the pace we're doing it, then I don't mind doing that, but it would require the 2 million bucks a year, or $5,500 a day. So, what every right, like all the sales that we would have got, it goes to the Dow till they get their money back, plus a 20% profit for taking the risk, plus a 50-50 split over and above that, because I think it's important that just like, the Dow took a risk. If this project goes through, the Dow took a risk, they get a 20% profit, but they also deserve like an upside, from there, more than that. But also the team would deserve an upside as well because, like we worked for our cost, basically. So if we worked for 2 years at cost, we deserve to make some money if the Dow got 120% of their money back. And I think 50-50 is just general in the world, right? Like, equal parties, 50-50, right? It's really not that complicated. So far as I'm concerned, I know other people, and I know you're going to get into a whole bunch of questions, and I've had a lot of people ask. I can go either way. Honestly, I'm okay with either way. Like I'm not. I just bought a whole bunch of rebellion packs, or excuse me, escalation packs, because I believe that this is an awesome project, and I want to own those black foils and the collectible aspect of the cards for the long term. Um, but just because I did that doesn't mean that I don't see that I could lose my money. So I'm in that position where I'm hopeful, but I have to also run the business from a prudent standpoint. So make a long story short, and the TLDR it. If the Dow wants, likes what we're doing, likes the pace at which we're doing it, and thinks that we should maintain the pace we're going now, then they're going to have to shoulder the risk, and the company can just, do their thing, right? Like we manage the business to that $2 million a year or $5,500 a day, and we just keep pumping out stuff. If the Dow doesn't want to do that, that's fine. I'll have to manage it a different way, which is obviously going to mean that I'm going to have to be more conservative and account for the possible, all the risk, that I see ahead.
I think that's just I feel like you had to be responsible, right? And that's what I'm saying. Like, so I know that's the biggest question that I've gotten from a lot of people is like, I keep getting, well, one is a lot of people keep talking about the IP idea and like whether or not co-ownership makes sense or whether or not it's even like a real thing. Or, I like that. That's where I think a lot of the questions come from. But also,
Can
you know,
can I can I hop in on that?
yeah, go ahead.
So, uh, whether the IP is involved or not in the deal, as far as I'm concerned, that it wasn't in my mind. When Clay and I first talked about like a plan, what would be a good plan, from the company standpoint, what would the company, it's like negotiations, what does the company want, need, what's the frame the situation, so to speak. And then you had your issues, Clay. But from my standpoint, I mean, the IP or not the IP really wouldn't have changed the deal. Like I think very simplistically, we need $2 million a day. I mean, $2 million a year. If you want a 2 year cycle, that's 4 million bucks. We need 4 million bucks, not 3.8 million. Not 5 million, but we need 4 million bucks, right? That's what it would take to take the risk off of our plate. It has nothing to do with the IP, has nothing to do with any of that. I mean, it's a simple number. And then the payback is a simple payback. If the Dow's gonna fund the risk, then they should get an upside, right? They should get all the money that we would come in. So we don't get any of the money from that, like everything we do that generates revenues that would go to us, not counting things like burns and stuff like that. But anything we do that would go to us would then go to the Dow until the Dow got their money back. Pretty simple concept. It happens all the time in the hedge fund world. 20% mark is rather common. I mean, could it be 30%? Could it be 50%? Could it be 10%? Sure. Like, people could argue with that, but I don't think anybody from the outside would say 20% is unreasonable, on either side, for the risk the Dow's taken, because they are taking the risk. Like, yes, the sales of Rebellion would have paid for it. Yes, the sales of Conclave would have paid for it. Will the sales of Battle for Pretoria, the next series, will that pay for it? Like, we don't know. Like, obviously, if we knew that, it would be probably a different discussion, but we don't know. What if sales come in at 2.5 million instead of 4 million, for instance? The Dow will eat the loss, right? So therefore the Dow needs to also get paid, a premium or a bonus if we hit the targets. So, the IP itself, I know some people are looking at it like this is selling the IP. This isn't selling the IP. This is, the financial aspect is the shifting the risk um of the set going forward. And then Clay has been pushing for the IP for years and years and years. And I personally always was like okay with it. Like when I wasn't on the team or in the CEO role, I also believed that it was smart that the DAO had the IP. Matt has said for all, pretty much since day one that he believed that this was a community project. So he didn't object to the IP. So Clay was like, "Hey, can we put that into the deal?" And I'm like, "Sure." So I wrote up, we're not giving the IP away. We're just, it'd be co-ownership would be the process. So both entities would have full rights to the IP, which I think is certainly respectful considering that the DAO's, wants to fund us at this rate going forward. I mean, just from a ethical standpoint, I think that makes sense. But it's not selling the IP for 2 million or, things of what people said. I mean, it's a it's a it is value. It does have value, but that's not the main reason why the whole thing came up. And then I I'll stop there. All right.
For me, the issue with the IP, it ultimately comes down to, I feel like it's an additional layer of security for the community, for the DAO. And again, like I don't think, like I'm not looking for like some situation where the company is like, okay, well we're not dealing with the DAO anymore. You can't use our IP, or I'm not like looking like, well, the company is gonna like go shut down tomorrow, so we need the IP or anything like that. To me, like part of the thing with like owning the IP is, the best way I can put this is like, to me it makes us more of a legitimized, like decentralized kind of like Web3 project, right? Like the thing is, anything can happen. Well, one in crypto, but also like in the real world, right? Like so, if the company, were to go under, or anything else, like forced liquidations. I mean, there's like a million things that can happen in business. So if anything did happen, like where does that leave us, right? Like the community's here, we all own these assets, we're all basically like owners of the game in that sense. So like to me, I feel like it's important enough that, like you said, I've been bringing this up for years and I've been like pushing for it, especially now that the DAO has like funded the development for like the last multiple sets. I mean, to me, it just seems like a logical evolution. Like the DAO should be able to like have the code. The DAO should be able to have like the art assets and all of this. And I don't mean to like take it and like like we're taking our toy and we're going play over there. But I mean to have that level of security that if something does go wrong, that we can say, okay, well we can go bring some servers online, we can hook it back up to the Hive blockchain, we can carry on, right? Now, I mean, do I think that's ever going to be like an ideal situation? No, but like, would I rather us have options than not have options? Yeah, I mean, like to me, that's like I'm always of the mindset of like you hope for the best, you prepare for the worst, and to me, like that's been one of the big things because I'm like, so like let's just assume like company closes down tomorrow, like a meteor falls out of the sky, and like everybody that works at the company's gone, right? So the rest of us are all still here. There's no company. well, what are we doing, right? Like as of right now, we couldn't even, if we wanted to, bring the game back online because we don't have the code, we don't have the art assets, we don't, you know, we don't really. I mean, like I know who like on the team, can like keep things running, who can spin things up. I know community developers that I think could probably also do it. And to me, again, like I said, it's about having like that extra level of security for everybody that's here, that's invested in the project, and especially if the DAO is going to become like the biggest investor slash partner going forward. To me, it's just kind of like a no-brainer, right? Like the DAO should have equal asset access to like the things that we're basically paying you guys to develop. And like I said, again, it's not like a hoping for the worst or like, thinking the worst is coming. It's just like logically, I feel like we have to have that security to like be acting in good conscience, right? Now, like I said,
I mean, yeah, and in reality, Clay, I mean, number one, you guys aren't going to own the IP. You're going to co-own the IP if this went through, right? So, in other words, it's like a marriage, right? You have two partners; they own things equally. It'd be the same kind of situation. Um, the the reason why I think that's important is because, I mean, isn't the DAO pretty much, in the past, like in part of, other words, we both work for the benefit of each other, just like how partners would in the real world, right? Like the DAO, funded the validators, for instance. But before the DAO funded the validators, the team, spent a lot of money, on the people that were doing the validators, right? And then the DAO comes along and says, okay, we'll take over, right? And I mean, it's just in the past, that they are two different entities, two different groups. The DAO is made up a whole bunch of people that have their interest in and decide what makes the most sense for them, which is exactly what decentralization means. The company is an entity that, is a for-profit C corporation, and they have their own shareholders and motivations. Hopefully, both of them owning it together, is a good thing. But again, I go back to the point, like I think it's a great idea that we do it, but that's not the reason to spend the $5,500 a day. I mean, the reason to spend 5,500 a day is because that's what we need to make sure that we don't have risk, going forward, so we can put our head down and produce, right? Then whatever comes out of the set cycle, comes out of the set cycle. So, people will be like, oh, you got less players, it's going to be less. Okay, well, then the DAO's going to take that risk. Right? I mean, that's why they're gonna get 20%. That's why they're gonna get a 50-50 split if it goes the other way. What if we're the only man standing and we're the king of the hill, and everybody wants to come play our game and we have another 2021, then, the DAO deserves to reap the benefit of that as well. So I don't think that the IP is the main reason why to do the deal one way or the other. Obviously, everybody is a DAO holder reason. I mean, that's what a DAO is, right? Like you own a governance token, you vote based on what you think. Um, and if your primary reason is the IP, and let's say you like it, maybe that's why you vote for it. And if you don't like it, then maybe that's why you vote against it. And each person makes their own decision. This certainly isn't a decision that Clay makes, Dave makes, Matt makes, or any one player. Like every single person in the DAO gets to make that choice.
Yep. Okay, well, I know we already did the long form kind of like talk about a lot of this stuff on People's Guild. That's recorded. Let's start trying to like jump into questions because I know that there's people here and like maybe they'll pull up some stuff we haven't touched on.
Okay.
I think I have three questions here that people submitted that may not be listening right now. Paul TRX is asking, does everything the team sells go to the DAO until we reach 4.8 million USD, not just packs? So like promo cards, gift boxes, land cards, battle passes, etc.
Yes. But with the explanation to everybody, like some things we sell, for instance, for land resources, like the latest card. the latest land card. That was sold for uh, land resources and stone or iron and cinder. Neither of those the team gets any revenue from. Right, the community gets it via the burning of those assets, the burning of the cards or burning of the stone or iron. That the DAO won't get that unless the DAO wants to get that. But if the DAO says, "Hey, stop doing those things for that and sell those cards in USDC," yeah, sure, we'll be happy to do that. Like it's like I plan on continuing to do what we do, and everything where we would have received the money, that money would all go essentially to the DAO. So if it's something that's like a burn mechanic or something like that, where we're like a voucher card, for instance, where the vouchers, that people spend get burned, right? Like I would plan on continuing that, right? But new things like my mind would focus on, what can we do to get their DAO their money back? Because, I want to see that in other words, if the DAO gives us 4 million, my goal is to get them back to 4.8 as fast as possible. So that would be my personal goal. So yes, 100% of everything that we come up with, all the profit from it would go there. And I just say profit, and I'll define that. Like if we get revenues that come in, let's say we get $1,000 that comes in and it cost us $100, and stuff we like, for instance, for the Winterfest boxes, if there was items in the Winterfest box, then it would be the net of the two. That's what I mean by profit. So net revenues, yes, 100% of net revenues. That's probably a better way to describe it.
Includes things like market fees, right?
Yep. Yep.
Okay. So this
Yeah.
ties into
We
the next question. Joe Hanser is asking, how will credit purchases through PayPal be handled? Will they just go to the DAO daily, or is DEX sent to the DAO? Sent from the DAO, will it be reduced accordingly?
Yeah. Uh, we haven't worked out all the specifics there, but the general gist would be we would love for the DAO to get the ability to accept the credit payments. That would be awesome. Uh, Having said that, I think it's not very likely, just because, all the rules that you got to go through to get approved to be a vendor of these places. So most likely what will happen, so the answer is if the DAO could do it, great. I mean, if Clay, if you could make that happen, again, all the money that comes through that process would be yours anyway. So taking us out of it would be no problem. Um, Having said that, we probably would need to stay in there most likely. So essentially it comes down to again the net. So if we get $1,000 and there's $50 of expenses that are associated with that, then you would get $950 from it. And how would it be accounted for? It would be on a daily basis, but probably done over a month, is like per month. I mean, I don't think. I mean, I'm willing to do it every day. My guess is Clay probably not going to want to get the treasurers together every single day to send and receive money. So my guess is probably it will be something where we settle up. The DAO prepays, whatever, a month or a quarter or something like that, whatever they want, and then there's an accounting kept on it on a daily basis with a plus and minus ledger, and essentially and yes, everything will be done on a USD basis. So for instance, if you receive USDC, then it's USDC. If you receive DEC, then it's translated over into USDC on a daily basis.
Okay. Which I guess that itself kind of like ties into the next question, which is I'm not sure who this one is. Bera Bonk. Haven't seen this person before, I don't think, but they say, I'm curious how the payment plan actually plays out in practice. The DAO has roughly 1.7 million in liquid between HBD, Hive, and DEC, which covers most of year one, but years two starts looking shaky. At that point, you're likely burning SPS to mint deck. Can we get a realistic payment runway breakdown? And is there any appetite for trying part of the payments or for tying part of the payments to hitting specific milestones rather than a flat daily rate regardless of delivery?
Um, that was a long one. And I'm not, just so you know, I'm not professional at, answering these things. So I'm going to start with the back. The last one, I would not have an appetite for, the markers and timelines and, like I'm trying to run a business. I know what my costs are. So, you either like what we do or you don't, right? I can't wonder whether I'm going to get paid. If I'm going to wonder whether I get paid, then I'll go a different way, right? Like what's happening, in this process is the DAO is taking the risk of the next full set cycle, right? Do they want to take the risk or they don't? Do they trust that we'll produce stuff well, that will continue to make cool things, things like fortune draws and auctions and promos and skins and all, just think of all the things we did in the last year. Like, are you confident that we can deliver that stuff or not? If the answer is like, nope, I want it in writing, right? Well, then vote no. Like that would be what you would do because if you're not confident in that, then it probably doesn't make sense. But on my end, as the CEO of the company, I have to know that that money's coming in. If I don't know that that money's coming in, then the deal means nothing to me. Like I have to manage a different way, right? In other words, my job is to make sure that Splinterlands goes forward. In other words, I'm gonna do the best that I can to make sure Splinterland goes forward. If that risk of the set cycle, like people could argue, like, are we gonna get our money for our value, right? Like we did 4 million plus over the last two set cycles. Are we going to do 4 million plus for this one? And let's say somebody comes in and says, "Hell no, we're only going to do 2 million." Right? Like the sky is falling, everything's horrible. We'll be lucky if we get 2 million. Well, then the Dow would lose 2 million if that guy's right, right? Like that would be what it is. So there is a risk that the Dow's taken by doing this. 100% risk. They could lose, like, we could never get another sale of any other packs or anything going forward. Everything we do, like, nobody could want it. So the Dow would be taking a $4 million risk if for a 2-year cycle. Um, the way the Dow's also taking a risk that, you pay us and we stop making things, right? We screw up the set. We put out bad cards that people hate. We uh, you know, do just dumb stuff, right? I mean, that's a risk. I mean, honestly, anybody that knows me to know that, you know, how I operate and you can see for your own eyes like how it's been for the last year. I'm going to continue, to focus and do things the way I focus and do things, but I'm certainly not going to uh, be in a position where, like I know we're going to do a core set. I know we're going to do a mini set and I know we're going to do a reward set. I'm pretty confident my standards are pretty high. Uh, and I'm going to do the best I can with what I got. Right. And that's all I'm going to promise. So if that's not good enough, then honestly, people should vote no. And that would be okay. Like this is like I said, I'm okay with either way. If people really don't wanna do this, like, if they're like, "Hey, I don't want the team to I don't wanna take the risk of sales, like, this market's tough and blah, blah, blah," like, okay, no problem. Like, I understand, and that's okay. So if that's how the vote goes, if that's how the community and the SPS holders decide to go, then that's fine. But I need to know, like, do we have the money or not? Because if we don't, then I have to manage the business in such a way that I make sure that we, like I said, that we hit, the future. Like, I want to be here for the 10-year anniversary. I want to be here for the 15-year anniversary. I don't want to like take a shot, right? And like let's hope. right? Like, I don't manage the hope, I manage the reality. So, did I answer that? Oh, yeah, that was just the last part of the question. What was the first part of the question? I'm
Well,
sorry.
I guess the first part's probably more for me. It's talking about basically the amount of like Hive HBD deck we have on standby, and you know where basically like where the rest of the funding comes from, right? And
Oh,
there is the caveat in the draft that if we have to, we can burn SPS for deck. But like I'm gonna be honest, I don't think that that's the most likely scenario because I think like one of the things we got to keep in mind is like basically if I look at this almost like we're annualizing your revenue, right? Because like I know kind of like how the company's revenue tends to run, which is like very spiky and sporadic, right? Like we have a new core set. You might make like $1 million in 2 days, right? And then you might spend the next, 6 months trying to make another half a million. And then you might spend like the next 2 months after that trying to make another half a million, right? Like it's kind of like all over the place and it's like cyclical. So I kind of look at this as almost like one like we're buying you more breathing room so you don't have to try to manage like sporadic set releases and sales, but also I look at it as like we're annualizing that pay so that it's kind of like that's our upside potential, right? Of course, like you said, it comes with all the risk you mentioned. So like in my mind, do we need $4 million in cash in the DAO? Which I mean, arguably we have if we get into things like SPS and everything. So like technically yes, there's money there, but do we need like 4 million cash? And I think the answer is no, right? And like also, it's going to depend on like when does the DAO want another core set, right? Like I like my idea and like what I was thinking was like I personally like I thought it wouldn't be the worst idea to try to move to like a 2 year cycle. I've had people push back and say that they don't want to wait 2 years, and I'm like okay, well like from the conversations I've had it would seem that like a lot of people feel differently, but that's something I might have to put a poll out and kind of like gauge community interest. And I mean, if everybody's saying, hey, this fall, maybe this winter, we want another core set, then I mean, I think the team can have it like coded up and delivered by then. So like we'll have to assess that situation. But the point being is like it's not like we're gonna go 4 years with no revenue, right? Like I mean we would basically be taking on that risk and like annualizing their pay for the next 4 years, well sorry 2 years of like $4 million, but like yeah like just like what Dave was saying there like there's going to be constantly like revenue coming in, right? I mean there's like some amount of money that comes in every day through the credit system, there's market fees, there are seasonal events, there's the next core set, all of these things bring money back. So like I mean if anything you could say that like some of the money will be like reused. It's like we're kind of like paying up front to kind of like create that buffer that will keep development going at its current pace, and then more money will be ideally coming in from things like whenever we do say like we do a seasonal event during the summer, or say we have like a core set this fall. I mean like that's potentially millions of dollars right there. So it's like I said, you have to kind of like look at it from that bigger picture of it's not just net outflows, like there will be inflows coming too, and that's one of the things that like we're going to definitely have to keep like good accounting for, right? Because like just like how the DAO is going to have to pay um, like a USD rate for like, average daily, right? Like if we give you guys deck, we have to pay based on the USD rate of deck that day, right? Whenever you guys return value, you have to also pay on the USD value that you're returning. So it's like, we kind of have to like look at it like that, which, kind of like I would say ties to like one of the other complaints or like questions that I've gotten, which
okay,
is,
but, can you hold that thought and let me
yeah,
comment on the other
yeah,
thing?
go
So,
ahead.
the I mean, one, to be clear from the company standpoint, whatever, uh, if you guys decided to pay us, 4 million for the next 2 years or 3 million for the next 18 months, like either way, it's fine with us. none of that matters for me. What I care about is the $5,500 a day for the set cycle, right? That's what I need to focus on because I need to make sure we make a set because that's where we get our revenues. I need to make sure we make a mini set because that's where we get our revenues. And I got to make sure we do a reward set because that's where we reward all the people that just bought the first two. So those are the big primary things. I mean, we got other things like land cards and all kinds of other stuff that we could also do for more revenues. So, at the end of the day, it's not just, the main stuff, but primarily, that's the bulk of it. Now, you guys could say, "You know what? Let's do it this fall." Okay, great. You could say, "Let's wait till the very end of the next 2 years and deliver everything all at once." I mean, I think that would be a stupid way to do it. I don't think the community would vote for that, but as far as I'm concerned from the company standpoint, that's up to you guys. Like, I'll make sure we have the set ready. You could launch them all at the same time on the 18 month, or the 24th month, whatever the set cycle is. Like, that's up to you guys. Personally, I'm a conservative person, so I would tend to want to try to get revenue as fast as possible so that, let's say we did a $500,000 in sales on something, you know, so let's say you gave us whatever 600,000 or 700,000, over, whatever 3 months, whatever time frame that is, and then we did something where you got 500,000 back. Well, now, you're only risking, 100,000 or 200,000 because you got back some of the money. So again, if you just step back and kind of just visualize it over set cycles, then you can, what was rebellion? What was the revenues for rebellion? Then go to the Conclave Arcana, another set cycle. What was the revenues for that? Like we could go back to Cast Legion, but that's fantasy. Like, that included the big 2021 spike. So I think that's kind of an outlier. But I think comparing to Rebellion, comparing to Conclave Arcana is a good way to do it. Conclave Arcana is actually the sales were higher in Conclave Arcana at the cycle than Rebellion, which is a good thing. But to offset that good thing, just to be honest with you guys, like we have less players. So that's a plus and a minus, right? The plus is, or the minus is, we actually had less players, for Conclave Arcana versus Rebellion. The plus is those players spent more money per player on average. So that's actually a good thing. So look, it's nothing's guaranteed. There's definitely issues that got to be handled. So what's the next step going to be? Like if anybody knew, that'd be great. Just tell me. But I don't think any of us know. We don't know the environment. We don't know what's going to happen. So the point is, yes, you're locking in 4 million, and yes, you could risk all 4 million because you never do any other sales. I just don't think that's likely. I mean, I think it's likely that people in the now are going to want to get their money back, just like the team would want to get their money back, and us as a team are certainly going to be supporting of that. Oh, I'm sorry, Clay, I didn't mean to interrupt.
Well, I mean, not only that, but like the way this is structured is like you guys literally have incentive to do more than that, right? Like if you want the company to not just like have its needs met, but also be profitable, you want to get over that 4.8 million, right? So,
Yes.
and that's the other thing too, is people are like, well, there's only 20% upside. And it's like, no, if we hit 20% upside, it's going to be more than 20% upside. Because hitting 20% upside means we're now in the 50-50 revenue split, which is even more return. But what I was going to say to like address one of the concerns is I know that this is something that's like on a lot of people's minds is like, we're going to be putting this deck back out there. It's going to hurt the price of deck, which, we've had this same argument with like, I guess like you could look at the last four events. I dropped the sales numbers before, and again, like there's always a risk, so I can't promise you history repeats itself. But you know, historically, we put out X amount of deck, we bring back more than X amount of deck, right? Like so, we're deflationary in that sense. But also, if you think about it in the way that we're talking about everything will be converted to USD value, if we pay the team, like let's just say, like the 5,000, like whatever the 5,500 uh a day, right? And like that's, let's just say that's 6 million deck today, just for example. Well, if for the team to repay that same 6 million deck, but the price of deck went down, you would be like maybe returning 7 million deck, right? So I'm not saying we're hoping for the price of deck to go lower, but like if it did happen, in theory, it should be even more net deflationary because you would have to pull more deck out of circulation to repay the same US dollar value of deck, which of course also has the inverse issue, which is, if we put out that 6 million deck and then the price of deck goes up, maybe they only have to return like 5 million, right? So just throwing that out there, it's not like a one-to-one situation, right? Because we're basing everything on USD value, which I think is arguably better for the DAO because we don't want to like say we're gonna pay 4.8 million or $4 million and we're gonna get 4.8 million back, and then we do another core set and the team's like, well, we sold 1 million packs for 4,000 deck each. It's like, okay, well, that doesn't really, that doesn't equate to $4 million for us, So again, I think it's structured in a way that protects the value of the DAO, and it's like I said, I anything can happen, but like I do think that doing like USD values for like average daily price is gonna probably be in our best interest, especially in the event that deck price goes down. I mean, what would you say that's a fair assessment, Dave?
Yeah, I mean, well, first, the whole premise of the recycling of deck, I mean, I understand, and I think people are well-meaning that see that, but deck is in the past, everything what we sold our product in. So every business in the world that sells their product in a certain currency has to liquidate that currency in order to pay their bills. Like there is not one business out there that I'm aware of that doesn't do that. So if we sold our stuff in marbles, we would have to convert those marbles into US dollars so we could actually pay our bills. So, the recycling of deck is it's like they forgot that the team needed to be paid. Like, yes, we do sales in deck. Yes, people buy in deck, but we have to convert that deck into dollars. Now we do it kind of seamlessly, behind the scenes, through our credit mechanism. But nonetheless, if we did 4 million in sales over a 2-year period of time, it don't matter what currency it's in, we're going to need the $4 million. So, the whole, deck circulation thing, I think is it's a it's a it's just a misunderstanding of how it works. And then as far as the rate goes, whether it's 52 cents on the dollar, 38 cents on the dollar, like it was, back when the J69 days, or 100 cents on the dollar, like it was in 2021, like that, it's still in US dollars. Like on a, if you convert it to US dollars on a daily basis is all that matters, right? So um I'm not worried about, like, we have a mechanism to convert the deck into dollars that stays. So I don't see any negativity to deck at all. In that, you know, and that, like if you guys want to switch to just getting USDC for pack sales, we could do that too. Like I don't have a problem with it. It doesn't really matter to me. Uh, as long as we have the dollars to make sure we make the payments.
Okay, well, let's see. We got two more questions that came in, and guys, listen. Like, if you're just listening, you're not like reading the chat. If you do have questions that you want us to answer, please get them in. We're watching the YouTube chat. We're watching the Town Hall chat and the Splinterlands Discord. We will try to get your questions answered. That's one of the main reasons we wanted to do this event today. Is like we've kind of like already talked about it. We put our ideas out there. The draft is available for everybody to read. but there's still the very real question, like possibility that you guys have questions that we're not thinking of or addressing. So please, if you have them, get them in so we could try to address them. Um, let's see. So Zekrom says, "Is the next set already being worked on and developed?" And I can confidently say yes because I help with that. Uh,
Yeah.
do you think that's
Yes.
fair, Dave?
Yeah, the working name for it is Battle for Pretoria. The overall set design, I mean, the process, I don't want to get too in depth on this call on how it all works, but the overall set design is there, meaning, you know, how many uh cards are going to be in the set, or at least the core set. Um, what's going to be the new mechanic, like how we had bloodlines and tactics, and there will be something new that's already been done and working and being tested right now. um so that part of it is done. Now they're in the part where they're trying to figure out, like, for instance, exactly what bloodlines do they want to have, which, you know melee versus magic, all that balancing issue. Like, we're still in that process. um The internal plan was to have that done by the end of June. So we're tracking plus or minus, as always, plus or minus, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, on that. Whether I had to be prepared in the event that this is a no, or I not just had to, still have to, right? I have to be prepared this is a no. And if it's a no, then that the set's gonna come out a little earlier than in the 18 months, because we are going to want to make sure that we're here. um Having said that, if 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 Clay and the Dow, you guys through conversations, want to, I forget what you said, a fall release date, I'm not sure exactly what it was, then certainly we could delay it then. But yes, the set's being worked on. um we've already got some mock-ups of what the new foils will look like, and things like that. But it is still work to go. It's not like on the shelf and ready, but it's the process is well underway.
Yeah, just to touch on something Dave was saying there. Well, assuming this proposal passes, I'll be doing some polling to figure out, like stake weighted polling, because that's going to be important here, to try to figure out when the DAO wants the next set. Like I said, personally, like I personally like the idea of trying to move to like a 2 year cycle to where we have like a new core set, like 1 year, we have a new mini set the next year, maybe we have a reward set each year in between. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not here to be like the decider. I don't get to dictate things to the DAO. I just get to kind of like explore things, try to like communicate between the company and the DAO, help you guys make informed and educated decisions. But ultimately, the DAO votes on and decides things. So we will address that. Like it's not like I'm dictating it has to be 2 years. So just so we're clear on that, because I've had that asked multiple times. Um, okay, so Paul is saying, or Paul is asking, can you share the average amount of credits purchased per day, and how much are the market fees per day?
On the market piece, I don't know. I did shoot a message over to Gator to get it. It's minimal, in the big scheme of things. So out of $2 million, I don't even want to know a guess, but it's not a million. I'll put it this way. It's not meaningful.
A couple percent tops.
Yeah, I mean, at
Okay.
best. I mean, but it's something. I mean, that would go there. I mean, we also make some money on things like uh the fortune draw, not the fortune draws, the auction marks and the raffle tickets. So um, you know, like wherever we're making money, it will just go to a Dow wallet instead of our wallet, basically. That's what will happen. In terms of the number, I don't have the exact number. I have asked Gator to see if he can Gator or Mark, Mark handles our database, to see if they can get me an answer while we have this call. But I can safely say it's not material. It's
Um,
something, but it's not going to change. It's not going to change the dynamics. In terms of the credit purchase per day, it ranges. A lot of things that factor there. Weirdly enough, when asset prices go down, credit purchases go up. So you guys understand how that works, right? Because if assets go down, people want to buy them. They want to get money into the game. They go buy credits, and then they take those credits and they go buy those assets. So in a weird way, prices going down is actually great for credit, being purchased. So it increases the conversion rate because people that are looking for deals put more money in when that happens. That's one of the benefits of our system. We have some flaws in our system, which I'm not going to go into all that, but that's one of the benefits of our system is, there is that counterbalance there. On an average day, I mean, it's hard to say what an average day is because it really depends on, what's going on out there. But, you know, I'll put it this way. I'm not surprised that if I see 2,000, 4,000, 3,000. Sometimes you'll see 14,000. It just depends on when people put money in.
Well, also, I think one thing to be clear on is I'm not saying it's completely irrelevant, but the credit purchases isn't necessarily the most relevant thing because if it's going to third party sales, uh, the company is basically being a facilitator at that point. Like that's not necessarily like profit. So like the market fees would probably, yeah, like the market fees would go to the DAO, but like just because the company might make $10,000 selling credits doesn't mean the company makes $10,000. Like it means the company is now like facilitating that value transfer for $10,000. So I just want to make sure that's clear because I know Dave's throwing out those numbers. Like I don't think you can count that necessarily as revenue.
Oh, 100%. In fact, we don't count that as revenues. Like when
Yeah,
people buy credits, that's not a revenue item.
yeah,
It's a conversion item, right? We have to book deck liability against those credits that were purchased.
yeah. By the way, I'm really glad to see you guys added the convenience fee to credits. That's something that's driven me nuts for years. I think you knew that like that was something that kind of got under my skin, but I'm glad to see that. I know nobody likes spending more money, but it's one of those things that I feel like needed to be done to protect the company. I've been suggesting that for like a long time, so it was really awesome to see you make that change. Just throwing that out there. Um, let's see. The next
Thank you.
question comes from Bam. That's Bam Law X. I gotta say the full name. What happens with the land cards if all cards are found? The main benefit of having one maxed out is finding more cards. Myself and many others are scared we do use most of the value of a maxed out land card. Or I'm guessing
Yeah,
maybe
that's by
maybe he
design.
means like they lose most of the value of the maxed
No,
land.
no. I mean, it
Uh,
depends on how you want to look at it. Anybody can look at it any way they want, right? So that's cool, right? Like people can, I mean, that's what makes a market, right? But at the end of the day, the land cards were created to give the value of the land card. So meaning I get 100% bonus on my wood, or I get, 60% for having a Uland, or, whatever the mechanic was. I get an energized ability for a small one. I say that I don't have to buy a power core. So that's $5 for the utility there. Right. But to a guy who has a max level, he probably already has an energy core. So that means nothing to him. I've had this, discussion for a long time actually with people about that. Like each piece of the way that was structured has value to somebody. Um, Depending on what you care about will depend on, how you want to do it. So if you're doing it for the airdrop that you get, the potential of getting those special cards, which by the way, my luck's been horrible. But if that's the sole primary value that you see there, then you'll probably want to sell the card. So then you have a calculation. Like I buy the card, I spend X amount of dollars, I get X amount of airdrop cards that I anticipate, right? That they're going to be worth, Y. And then you take the X minus the Y, and then whatever residual you have left would be the value that you have left. And then the goal obviously will be to sell that card for more than X minus Y. Um, Personally, I don't think I think a lot of people are planning on keeping them for the value on land. I would actually say that I would actually say that most people view, and this is just a subjective thing, so, don't hold me to it, but ask around. I think most people count those as a bonus, and most of the reason why they own them is for for what they actually give them, for the perks they give at each particular level. If you got a max win, you got it because you're getting the value out of your land. If you have it uh, for other reasons, then maybe you don't, maybe you don't even own but one plot, and that's all you care about. So everybody can make that decision, but that was done intentionally. And by the way, those cards are going to run out, and that was embedded within the value of the card. So it was always planned that they were going to run out. And if we did another land card set or series or whatever, um, it would have their own bucket. The old bucket would not apply. It's not a perpetual thing. It's literally meant as a way to distribute that. It's kind of like complex. You don't forever get conflicts. You just get the conflicts of that particular card at that particular time. That's it. You don't get, like next year's set or 5 years from now, you don't keep getting the conflicts. It's the same thing. Like embedded in this, you're gonna buy the card. We're gonna distribute the special foils. The way the special foils are gonna be distributed is gonna be exactly the way that mechanism works. Once they're done, then they're done.
Well, not only that, but like it's interesting because like I feel like I've been one of the guys like pushing for more stuff for land because I think I see the value for the economic sink there, right? And I remember after those land cards went out, like I was like over there banging on Dave's desk, "Hey Dave, we gotta do some more, we gotta do some more," right? Like I think I think Dave will remember. But like I do like what we're doing right now too, right? Like right now we're kind of exploring like will land creating these like ranked play cards, for example. And like honestly, like the results have been pretty surprising to me so far, right? Like I mean people are buying like Cinder and basically minting these things at full price. And I think part of it is the fact that it's not just like you're getting these cards, but like each one of these cards also has a chance to add that additional value to where you may be able to get like a black foil or like a gold foil drop of one of these cards that you're minting. So it's interesting, right? Like, and this is one of the things that I like to see right now is that we're experimenting, we're trying to, kind of like test out and see like what's possible, what adds value, and then like the things that work. Obviously, I think we keep doing more of that, and like so far, I mean, like I think it's going pretty well. That we'll see whenever it goes into open minting. But something like I think like around 20% almost, or maybe 20% now. I was looking like yesterday, or like already minted before we even go to open minting. And like I said, keep in mind, every one of those current mints is like a also a chance at one of these jackpot cards, kind of like what Bam was talking about with the actual like land cards, right? So I do think it makes sense. It's cyclical. There is that boosted reward that adds the urgent value in the short time, and then the long term value is there with like what Dave's saying, where like you have like a permanent modifier to your land. So like like these cards like that's not going away, but you also can't just like have random jackpots forever. So like all of that makes sense to me. I want to keep seeing us do more. I'm really like one of the things I'm really curious about right now is seeing like how the whole thing with the skins plays out because I'm like, well, people will go burn, old cards for Cinder to make to make new cards, but will they do it for skins? And like so far, I mean some people are. So it's interesting. But let's see. We had some more questions coming in. So no peace for you. I would like to know I'd love to see the breakdown on $2 million a year for a gaming studio. It piques my interest of where we get that number from and how it compares to other gaming studios in the circle. That's not really a question, but I'm guessing the question would be: are you willing to like transparently share your for your fine like what the expenses are, Dave?
Uh, we're a private company, so I don't think I want to put all of our expenses out there, but the the bulk of it is either the technological services like the Amazons of the world, that runs roughly 400,000, just for that, a year. And then salaries, in other words, all the people we have on payroll, from all the devs, all the support people, all the creative people, accounting, all the different functions. Um, so
Would
that
you
that's about
let me ask you this in
how that compares to another gaming studio. I don't know. I inherited this one. So in other words, I cut it down a lot from what it was. But you know, are we efficient relative to other gaming studios? I guess it would depend on, what you're comparing it against. I would say we spend a lot less money than a lot of the other ones out in our space, because they got VC funding and we don't.
let me again, like I know you don't want to get too into specifics. Would you say what percentage of it is infrastructure and payroll? Like, I mean, would you say like 90%, 95%?
Now, hold on, let me look so I can give you a good answer.
Okay, yeah, I know like there's probably like reasons you don't want to get into like everything nitpicky,
Yeah, I
like
mean,
you don't
like
want
it
to
would
have like
be like
public
how
aud
much how much do you pay your accountant? Like things like
right.
that. Like I don't want to get too in depth,
Yeah.
just because like A, it's not that relevant.
Yeah.
But B, it's I mean, there is limits. I mean, I share a lot. I don't
Yeah.
want to share everything. But again, I'm not like hiding anything. So let me get you the number. Try to find it.
Yeah, I know Dave has been like a major champion of cutting cost and getting things to a more sustainable place, which it resonates with me because that was one of my big approaches whenever I started doing this for the DAO is like we've got to get more sustainable. And I mean, in some regards, I feel like we have, we've cut in a lot of inflation. I mean, obviously that doesn't directly translate to token price, but we have cut a lot of inflation. I still think that there's things we can do to cut more inflation. I still think, like one of the things that I'm hoping for is like if we do get this proposal through, I want to push the team to make more, SPS utility, more sinks to hopefully create more value for SPS. And that's one of the things is like, if we have to go the other route where the team is like scaling back and kind of like, just planning for the long haul and focusing less on these like, nice asks and like nice to have things, I feel like we probably won't get it, there just won't be as much development bandwidth to like go make new projects that are like, hey, let's go give people a reason to, sink millions of SPS into this thing, So like there's always going to be the ranked play and the tournaments and that kind of stuff, but I'd like to see more, you know.
Yeah, I'm gonna give you a total of, expenses versus keep in mind this is a moving number. I'm having to unhide all kinds of columns here, so just so you know, but I'll get it. All right, I think all right. When I started the the end of year planning for 2026 and put together the uh, what changes I'm going to make and then put new targets on everything. It was 67% was payroll to totally to other expenses. So 6733. The bulk, the bulk of our expenses on the non-payroll side, servers, um, and software and legal.
Okay. I think that's fair. I mean, that's about as transparent as I think. I mean, shit, that's probably more transparent than most companies are ever going to be. But
Now
so,
that's before I cut. I mean, I cut a lot of stuff. Like,
okay,
I'm not even going to go into all the stuff I cut, but I'll put it this way: we have an amazing group of people that are on the employee slash contractors because I cut hard, right? And they accepted it, right? Because they love the project, they want to see it succeed. Um, I guess I'll go ahead and say like a cut health insurance completely. Um, m- Pretty massive pay cuts to all the chiefs for sure. So all the chiefs got massive cuts. Um, and like I said, they're still here, they're still working, they want to see the project succeed. So um, that's why I don't really want to discuss too much because you start getting personal, about it. But I'll just say that the the team, rolled up their sleeves and they want to make it work. So they're doing what they need to do to make it work.
And we're still producing things faster than we
Yeah.
ever have. Like that, like I said, I, I I was trying to kind of like, not pry too much on this, but like I know some of this, so that's what I'm saying. I was like, so just so you guys get the picture, it's not like this proposal is like an ask for like some kind of like extravagant funding or something. It's basically like bare minimum, like what does it take to keep the company going without having that risk, and knowing that like these kind of things have already been done.
Yeah, and it's after the fact. Meaning I'm not trying to get money to keep people from getting paid like cushy salaries or anything. Right? Like I've already done the hard part. I wanted to see where they were gonna be. Like were they gonna, accept it or not, right? Like you need to know. Now I know, who, like I know how it all worked out. Now I'm comfortable, having the Dow fund. It's like I was never gonna like set it up so that like some guy's getting, some big fat paycheck and I want to just keep him getting a big fat paycheck. Like, no, I want to run it like a business and make sure we cut it down to, what's reasonable, and frugal, for that matter. So we've already done all that. So the 2 million a year that we're spending is not extravagant in any way, shape, or form. Now you could argue, do we need all the devs? Do we need support? Do we need all the legal people? Blah blah blah. Like there are things that anybody can argue, about. But in general, uh, like I said, we cut 40% in expenses, into this year from last.
Okay, I kind of goes. It's not really a question, but I did read it. It's basically just to sum it up real quick, Dave. He's basically saying that like he listened to the podcast. He supports the idea of like what I was talking about with like the battle pass. And just to briefly touch on that because I know there's more messages coming in. I can't really see them all yet, but yeah, like my idea is very much in line with what you're saying there, right? Like I think that there is ways that you can do a battle pass that is not necessarily just like a tax on the ecosystem where it's like literally a value add for everyone. Especially whenever you do things like free tiers that still have rewards, and then there's like paid tiers and premium tiers. Like we've discussed all of this. I think it's something that's going to happen one way or another. Hopefully it'll happen before too long because like I think it'd be really cool. I think it's a good way to distribute stuff. So I don't want to like get too deep into the tangent in case there's other questions below here, but it's awesome. I'm glad to hear you support it. I think it would be really cool and especially important to diversify those revenue streams for the company. And I mean, even if it's something like let's say $10,000 to $30,000 a month coming in from a battle pass, like that's more money that goes back to paying back the Dow quicker. Zekrom.
But hold on, let me just say, I fully support a battle pass. In the past, they didn't do the battle pass because they didn't feel it was going to be material. But if you, as you notice, I do a lot of things that aren't material, because it's important. Um, there's a limit on how many things we can do. Um, like we're going to have an SPS rental market coming out in a couple of weeks. Right? There's something that I don't think anybody's talked about. But we're going to be popping that on you guys here in a couple of weeks. Like that takes time, right? In other words, we have a lot of things that we can do. There's a long list of them, and Battle Pass is definitely on there. And I want to get to it sooner rather than later because I agree. I think that it's 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 it'll deepen the system, deepen the relationship, but also increase our ability to make sales. And since in effect the team's working for you guys, if this thing passes, then like I said, I would want to see you guys get paid back faster. And if if it didn't pass, then I want to see us get paid quicker. So battle pass is high up there on the list.
Okay, Zekrom has a follow-up to Bam's question. Are you saying that the idea is that Labor's Luck ability will be redundant slash useless once the bucket is emptied? Um, he
Yes.
personally, okay, so there you go. And that answers Bam's follow-up. Yeah, so Labor's Luck has a timeline. Once the cards are drawn, Labor's Luck has become redundant. I don't know if you want to turn it into anything else at any point, or you just saying like that's it. Once it's done, it's done. Like that's a shelf life ability. Okay, but like that's what you.
For now, that's what it is. Like, I don't want to make any other commitments. Like, could we do something with it later? Maybe. Right. But I certainly don't want to give anybody the impression that it's worth anything more than what's in the bucket right now.
Okay,
In other words, you own it, you get what's in the bucket. When the bucket's empty, that was what you got. It's no different. Like we have these new land cards being crafted, right? In the land cards that are being crafted, you get a regular foil. You don't get a gold foil, black foil, or any of the arcanes, right? How are those given out? Well, those are given out by the people that craft the cards. So if you craft 400 cards, you get 400 entries out of the 60,000. If you crafted 4,000 cards, you would get 4,000 out of 60,000. So what will happen is at the end, when it's all done, when the time is up or the amount has been crafted, then there's going to be one big, you know, uh, draw, right? And everybody's going to get whatever the machine spits out, but they're not going to get anything else. They're just going to, they're going to get, what's in that bucket, basically. So labor's luck works just like that. You get your addition. Now, down the road, could we do something else? Sure, it's possible. But like I said, I don't want people to count on that because that was not the design.
okay. I'm looking. Does anybody else have any questions related to the upcoming proposal? Um, if so, go ahead and get them in because I think we're gonna wrap up here before too long. So, I can get Dave back to the Rusty Android headquarters.
I did get an answer for you guys uh on the
Market fees.
fees. Uh and this is coming from Gator, so it's an asterisk and number one, he's having to interpret a chart. So it's not, like I don't want he doesn't have data, a table in front of him. He's looking at a chart. He said it looks like roughly 100,000, 400,000. Um I'm looking at the chart, it looks even slightly less than that, but uh, that's basically what he's looking at. So 100,000 would be roughly 100,000, and that's in deck. So that would be like $100, but at peg, at current peg would be like $50 a day. Like I said, it's not material. So
Okay.
I look at it, it might be $40, it might be $80, but it's again, it's not material, but I mean, all of it would be going to you guys. Everything we do would be going, every everything we do that we would be getting paid is going to transfer over to you guys until you get the 4.8 million, if this deal passes.
Okay. Seeing more just like overall commentary. Not seeing any more questions coming in. Did you have anything else you really want to touch on, Dave? Or
No, well, maybe I handled some of like I saw some of the questions on the post. And one in particular sticks in my head that I think, is I mean it's a fair point, but I don't know if the angle at which it was directed at you is fair. Um, and it had to do with the attorneys. Like play, why are you making this decision? You're not an attorney. How do you know? Why are we relying on the team's attorneys? Blah blah blah. And I think, and then the answer was like, I think it should be reviewed by attorney. Like, I think that even if we have to spend 50,000, he was saying, I'm paraphrasing, even if we did have to spend 50,000, that would be a good use of funds. So number one, my point to that is like if people want to have an attorney to make this decision and they don't have one, then they would say, well, if I don't have one, I don't want to vote for it, right? Like I just don't. Like, that's perfectly cool, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting to have an attorney, review something for you. You can do that as an individual, or you can do that as a group, right? Like, it could be a DAO, the DAO goes and pays for an attorney, and his suggestion, $50,000, right? Like, there's nothing wrong with wanting that. There's nothing wrong with suggesting that. And maybe that's what, you as an individual want to do, or the group wants to do. And that has nothing to do with me. I don't think Clay cares one way or the other either. And Clay, you can answer for yourself. But my guess is that, what the part that's missing from that kind of analysis is, you might care, you as an individual might care, and 20 other people don't. So it's kind of each thing is an individual choice, right? Like, do you care? Well, if you do, then you wouldn't vote if there's not one. And uh, some guy may say, well, it's 50,000 is worth spending an attorney to do that, and you know, other people may say, absolutely not. That's a waste of time and money, right? So again, it's up to the DAO to make those decisions. It's up to, people can make a proposal. I think, I don't know, but it seems like you've been pretty liberal on, if people want to, make a proposal, and, like, you're not like trying to make them pay 100,000 deck to make the proposal. So if somebody really wanted to make a proposal and had some legitimate backing, you would do a proposal for something like that.
Well,
Um,
there's now clear-cut guidelines, so it doesn't even need my approval anymore. It's
okay.
pinned on the SPS DAO blog. If you need me to link you the post, I will. We've had like Brave ran a proposal. I want to say like Bulldog ran a proposal. Uh, like people don't have to do things the way that I do them when it comes to proposals. Like I'll tell you, like my personal philosophy is I don't like the community that have to fight for no reason. So, like, one of the things that I do before I run proposals, especially contentious proposals, is I talk to top stakeholders and make sure that it's not dead in the water, right? And when I say that, I mean, if I know for, like, instance, like Brave, Jeff, Vugtis, Azurkhan, if I know all four of these guys are voting against a proposal, I don't really see a whole lot of value in just making the community fight over it if it's already a known outcome, right? That said, that's my personal philosophy. That's kind of like how I approach it. And, I try to operate from a point of like informed, you know, just like I like to know for sure. You get what I'm saying? Like I don't like to waste time. I don't like to waste my time. I don't like to waste theirs. I don't like to waste all of yours. Um, and more than that, like I just don't like to create uncertainty and fighting in the community because like I know some of these proposals get contentious. So like I said, my general like modus operandi there is like, is it already dead in the water? Like should I even put this out there for a vote, right? And if the answer is like it's dead in the water, don't like that's just how I approach it. That said, people disagree with me, and like you've seen, like like I said, like Bulldog, ran a proposal for better or worse. I think you saw the outcome, right? And like I didn't even think it was necessarily like a bad proposal. Like I didn't dislike it or anything. I was just kind of like whatever on it. But like he wanted to run a proposal to make it to where you couldn't buy potions with glint anymore. And I was like, okay, you know, like let's try it this way, right? We don't talk to the top stakeholders, we don't get any opinions, and we just run the proposal, and you can see the outcome, right? Now, Brave, on the other hand, Brave ran a proposal, which my understanding is Brave did have some of those conversations. So I feel like that one passed with like something like 98% approval, right? So it's like, to me, I think it's comes down to like efficiency, right? And like that's why I approach proposals the way I do. But like I said, doesn't mean anybody else has to. If you think that there's a proposal that needs to run and you don't like how I run proposals, you don't like how I word proposals, and you want to try to do a community run proposal yourself, like I said, instructions are clear on the SPS DAO blog post. I can share them with you if you can't find it. And you are more than free to proceed that way and do it yourself if you don't like how I do proposals. So just trying to make it clear I'm not like the gatekeeper of proposals. I'm not the decider. And if you don't even want to deal with any of that process, you can always just pay 100,000 deck and you can run any proposal. So
All
um
right, let me go back to Vuctus and Vuctus. I think you just must have showed up, but Bam was asking about the labor's luck, if that applies after the bucket is emptied of all those land cards. Does do they get anything else? And the answer is no. The bucket is the bucket for labor's luck is that edition that went out, those four, 4 cards, and they were thrown into a bucket, and you get them the way you get them, and when they're done, they're done.
yep, yep.
Uh,
I don't
Going
know.
back,
I don't know if
and if
Vocus is
anybody else,
listening or
if
not.
that's not clear, I'm happy to answer anything that you guys want to be more clear. And then going back to the attorney thing, Clay, I just want people to know, like it's okay, like nobody can dismiss what you care about, is I guess what I'm trying to say. So if somebody feels that it's important, like it's okay. Like I'm not gonna say no, you don't need an attorney. Like, of course, like people need attorneys for all kinds of things, right? So, who am I to say whether you need one or not? I'm not an attorney, so I certainly can't answer those questions. And I'm sure Clay, you're not an attorney to my knowledge. So,
The doctor, I just play one in Discord.
and also let me make also clear on that part, like Clay doesn't make the decision of what happens here. Dave doesn't make the decision. Nobody on the team makes the decision. The DAO makes the decision. Like the DAO is going to decide what to do, right? Like it's stake weighted. So the people that have stake that have owned SPS, that's one of the primary reasons to own SPS is you get to make, influence decisions like this. And it's actually a great dynamic. And this is a perfect example where the people that own the SPS should be happy that they own SPS because important decisions, you know, basically get decided this way. So nobody can tell anybody what to do. They each get to vote however they want to vote. So,
Okay. I
so
was
Buck
just
just didn't hear. Why? All right.
yeah. Okay, he says that's not what was promised. So I don't know. I will let you guys. He's
That
not
is what
listening.
was
So
promised. Yeah. So it's hard to say.
okay. Well, I don't think it really. I don't know if it really pertains to the current proposal. But if you guys want to talk about it, I'll let you guys just deal with that. I don't see any more questions coming in. So I guess we will go ahead and wrap it up. Thanks for coming, Dave. If you guys do have questions coming, or like you have questions after like listening to it, we can still try to follow up and address your questions, independently if there's something that, wasn't covered. But yeah, okay. Thanks for coming out, guys. And, hopefully, just consider what you think. We'll probably have the proposal go out maybe like sometime next week or so.
All right. Cool, man.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thanks for
guys.
having me, Clay. And thanks for everybody for being here. And just if you didn't make the meeting, or you just hopped on, feel free to message us later, listen to the replay. There's also the People's Guild replay. And like Clay, both Clay and I are pretty approachable. So if you have further questions and need more clarification, just reach out. We're humans. We're happy to give you our best.
Awesome. Yeah. Later, guys. Thanks for coming out.
Okay, see ya.